So the minivan's loaded up, the kids are buckled in, the wife's got the GPS and the maps going, and we're headed to California for vacation. Cruising along, here comes Blythe. We're halfway there, but it's time for a bathroom break. Go in, everybody takes care of their business, and we come out. Don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that messes up the family vacation.
Oh, Blythe is not a nice place to spend your vacation.
No, it's not.
You don't want to wait till Friday this week to get your car into the shop. You want it Monday. We won't scold you if you didn't already do it last week. Last week would have been the perfect time to get your car in before the road trip.
I like the ones, Dave, that they call at noon. I'm going out of town tomorrow. The family vacation. We've had this thing planned for 3 months, and I got to get an oil change today.
Yeah, you don't have to have an oil change to leave town.
It's not that important. Oil change is not going to make the difference. It's what we do with the oil change.
Well, we want to make sure nothing is falling off the car, nothing obvious, nothing evident. It may be nice to have the technician just go for a road test in your car. Take it on the city streets for a few miles, take it on the highway for a few miles, just so they can get a good feel for what you're... Because a lot of things happen over time, like a wheel bearing going bad. It makes a little bit of noise over time, and eventually it's a big noise. If somebody else gets in your car, they go, whoa!
Yeah, and you never notice it because it's just a little bit. It's a nudge. It nudges along.
Yes.
Kind of like this.
That gut of yours that showed up. It's kind of like you going bald, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. Next thing you know, there's nothing on top.
So tires are the big one.
Tires are clearly going to be the most important thing. They want to have at least 3 30-seconds of an inch of tread.
At least.
Now, that's not much, but used to say use a penny to stick it in the top of the head, and if you can see it, there's not enough tire. Well, now we use a quarter. Give you a little bit more margin of error. Tire pressure. The tire pressure setting is going to be on the door jamb. Sometimes on the gas cap door, there'll be a sticker that's got what your pressure should be. You can use the pressure on the tire, but that's the maximum pressure at the maximum load. So you may not get a very good ride there.
Well, back to your quarter trick, we got to swing the tire. Let's say it's the front wheels. Go ahead and crank the wheel all the way out to the left so you can see the whole surface of the face of the tire. Because I've seen tires with 4 30-seconds, 5 30-seconds on the outside edge with steel cords on the inside edge, and we don't want to be heading out of town on steel cords.
Oh yeah, being brand new. Yeah, so that's in that you're right, Dave. You can't turn the rear wheels out, obviously, but you need to look beyond that first tread. So exactly right. Turning the wheels full left or full right is going to kick the front of the tire out on one side and the back on the other. Get a good view across the whole surface of the tire, the whole contact patch.
The other thing to consider is the age of that tire, because tires really, and there's a lot of debate in our industry about it, but in some extent, they have about a 5-year shelf life.
5 or 6 years, yeah.
And the way you can identify the age of the tire is by the DOT number, or Department of Transportation number. It's a serial number for that tire, and there's 4 digits at the end of that number, and that's the week and year that tire was manufactured.
So it might say 3508 would be the last 4 digits. So that's the 35th week of the year 2008.
So they're 4-year-old tires.
Yes. So if you're seeing a 6 in there anywhere,
it's time to think about new tires. And that was the problem with some of the tires way back in the Firestone days. Those tires lasted forever. That tread just lasted and lasted. And when they were starting to have issues, these tires were 7 and 8 years old, but no one ever replaced them because the tread looked great.
Yeah, it's just the dry rot, the weather checking. And it doesn't happen too often now, but if you go to a little place that doesn't move very many tires, you might find a tire that just got put in your car that's already 3 years old. Most of the time it's not a problem, but it's something to think about if you don't use a lot of miles.
I worked for the tire business when I was in high school, busting tires, and that happened from time to time. So.
Well, they're out there. And the other thing is fluid levels. Check your transmission fluid. If it has a dipstick, most cars operate in temperature on a level surface in park. You want to check and make sure it's on the higher side of full.
Well, we're heading out of town, and we're talking about major services. I don't like to do any major services 5 days before I go out of town with a car. I usually like to do it a couple weeks. So a transmission service is a maintenance item. It's not urgent that you get that done 2 days before you leave town. As a matter of fact, I'm going to recommend you don't. Go ahead, take your vacation, and if you need to get your transmission serviced, service it when you get back.
I know, I hate that someone comes in, and even if we find something wrong, a hose is blown or whatever, or leaking, we fix that. You get in there, you nudge things, you disrupt, you have to maybe tug on the hose and that plastic radiator neck. Everything's okay now. And these people say, we're heading out tomorrow. Oh, my stomach. You get nervous because something could go wrong. I mean, we're human. inevitably at some point, at some time, or just that plastic radiator, maybe we just knock it over the edge, get that little crack that was barely a 1/16 of an inch. Now it's a quarter. You're halfway to Blythe. Now it's a half inch in a blow. So
I hear Blythe is pretty nice this time of year, but I don't think you want to spend your vacation there.
No. The other thing that we check, Dave's coolant. I mean, your radiator, cooling system. Now, a lot of people get the air conditioning Freon mixed up with coolant. It's two totally different things. You can't check your Freon level at home typically. There's no dipstick. It's a sealed system. And check your radiator. Make sure the overflow bottle on this side is in the acceptable range, and make sure the radiator itself is full if it has a cap on it. But we have to caution you, you never, ever, ever want to pop a radiator cap off on a hot car. You're going to end up burned. It's not safe. And if you do have a problem and you've got to add water, unfortunately you break down, you overheat, something happens, it can be just as dangerous because you go to pour that water in a hot radiator and it's like it vomits it back on you. It
comes out like a volcano.
Yeah, and it will puke that hot, steamy water all over you, and you don't want that. And then belts and hoses usually takes a little bit more skillful eye to look at. Some cars you can't even see the darn belts anymore. So take a look. Are they soft and pliable? Do they feel okay? Belts don't have any major cracks or glazing on them, not squealing. Those are about the three major items that you can check. And then, of course, you want to have some water, maybe some shade or a blanket, an umbrella.
Right. You ever been stuck on I-17 for 4 hours coming back?
I did. I got stuck on I-17, but it was only a couple hours once. It was in the wintertime. And
you got to go to the bathroom, and you can't wait for Black Canyon City.
Yeah, huh? We don't want to make anybody in Black Canyon City mad, but yeah, that'll be one of the few times you're really hoping to get there fast. Edward,
for sure.
Calling from Gilbert, 2004 Ford F350. What can we help you with, Edward?
Hi, I called in. You might remember I called in a few weeks ago about a bearing.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we've been talking about that one. Hey, before you get going too far, what color's your car? And have you ever been stuck on I-17 coming back from a 3-day weekend?
I have, and it's gray.
You have, and it's gray. It's no fun. What? So what? Are you giving us a follow-up call? Let us know if it was. I think Dave mentioned something about maybe a motor mount.
Yeah, I'd like to just throw something out there. I did fix it between the time we last spoke. And, it had been bugging me for about a year. I thought it was a bearing going out, inspected it over and over. And about 3 weeks ago, I crawled underneath the truck to remove the catalytic converter, which I do annually because I'm afraid of theft. They do disappear in these times.
Wait, hold on a second. So you take it off so nobody steals it so you can get more power.
That too. Okay, I admit that. But they do disappear from these trucks that sit a little higher. The cats. So I was under there. I removed the cat, put everything back, and I noticed that there was a shift in the exhaust pipe coming down from the back of the motor. It shifted about a half an inch to an inch, and it kind of surprised me a little bit. I'm like, wow. I didn't really look any further, but it seemed pretty solid. Since then, noise is gone. It's never come back. The noise was only when I turned to the left. It's never come back. So I'm assuming it had to do something with the exhaust and this rattle, this noise.
Yeah, maybe when you put the test pipe in, or the replacement converter, or the bypass of the converter just shifted over a little bit and was just hitting the frame or something, maybe, huh?
Well, who was more right?
It made such a noise.
Who was more right? It wasn't the bearings, right? I told you to...
Well, the bearings on this truck are great, evidently.
Okay.
Evidently. But the motor mount looks pretty good.
So neither of us were right.
Well, yeah, I mean, if anything, there might be some movement. So it's not all about ball bearings, Dave. So
I think it's the bypass line, yeah. I'm going to need some pliers and a set of 30-weight ball bearings.
What?
Yeah, tell you what, I got to go to my truck. If Fred gets here before I'm back, you can tell him to start without me.
What the hell you need ball bearings for?
Oh, come on, guys. It's so simple. Maybe you need a refresher course. It's all ball bearings nowadays.
Richard, you're up on Bumper to Bumper Radio. What can we help you with?
Well, good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Why, that was quite a story that I just heard. But anyhow, I have a 1989 Chevy 30. It's got the Chevy 30 front end, 21-foot Winnebago. Okay, it has 110,000 miles on it. It's got the 350 engine with a turbo 400 transmission. Okay, my question is about the air conditioning system in the coach, the cab part, around the dash area.
Sure.
Okay, now, can I buy a kit to recharge that myself, or would I have to have it recharged at a auto parts?
Well, you can buy a kit. Now, that old of a system is going to be R12, which is the original Freon, and then you can't buy that anymore. I mean, the average person without having a refrigerant handler's license and being certified, you're not supposed to be able to buy R12. I'm not 100% sure about R134. I think so.
Yeah.
But the auto parts stores sell these kits. Now, if you're not allowed to buy without having a license and they're selling something, it's not R134. And then a lot of those things have leak sealers and such in them. So the short answer to your question is you could charge it yourself, but the likelihood of being successful in having a good outcome, I think, is pretty low.
Yeah.
The old R12 system is not as sensitive to charge levels as R134 systems.
Yeah.
But you probably can't buy the R12 anywhere. You may want to consider converting that over to R134. I'm not a big fan of that, but I'll tell you, we had like an 89 Buick or something like that in the shop, and it had been converted, and I was reluctant to recharge it.
Yeah.
But the thing blew ice cold. It was great. So after all these years, my opinion has swayed a little bit. But you need to get the right charge level in there, find out where the leaks are. If there's more than likely a leak because it's a sealed system, so it should never leak. And that R12 is just expensive.
Really
you don't
expensive.
want to be.
Now we're really coming into our third generation of refrigerants for cars. I mean, it was R12 forever. Then R134 has been, what has it been, 2 decades?
96, 95, yeah.
Yeah, so a couple decades. And now, what's the new stuff called?
R1234Y or something like that.
I think you just made that up because I
No, it really is. I think Ward will probably call me and tell me I'll get a report back from Jim. And then the other thing you have to be cautious of, too, I've seen these guys on the side of the road. They have their camper set up, and they say, air conditioning charge $29. There's a lot of counterfeit refrigerant being passed around. There's it's contaminated. There's flammable components in it. There might be propane and other very dangerous stuff. You don't want to get involved with that. It's like a disease for your car. It's herpes.
I wouldn't go there, but
you get contaminated, and then all of a sudden you get to a shop and they don't test the equipment first, and now our machine gets contaminated and we don't know it, and then we go charge another car. All of a sudden we're contaminated. A whole bunch of stuff. So be careful with your AC services. Not every single car needs to get in. Maybe just swing by and go for a quick test drive. At our shop, I tell people it's like full service. There's hardly any full service gas stations anywhere anymore. Anytime, just pop in. We'll be glad to check your fluids, check your tires, and just give a quick look under the hood and try to ensure everything is in good shape.
Well, here's the other point too. If you're getting ready to go out of town and they do discover something that's wrong with your vehicle, needs attention right away, don't try and fix it and head out of town. You can always rent a car. If you're going to spend this 3-day weekend over in San Diego, just rent a car. Drive a rental car. Get it fixed when you get back.
And we're going to try and help Chilo on his 1990 Honda Accord. What can we do for you? You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Well, how you guys doing anyways?
Great.
I got this Honda, and I just got the car. It's nice. Everything's clean. I mean, the car's got 150,000 miles on it. It's good, but it's got right underneath the temperature sense, like there has an S, a green S, and it blinks. And I was thinking that's got something to do with the transmission.
It is.
I'm having a hard time picturing that dash panel, but yes,
it is, and that's the way in that vintage of Honda. That's the way it told you there was an issue with the transmission.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it skips second gear.
Okay, so if you start out from a stop, the light turns green, you put your foot on the gas, it goes 1. Do you feel it shift to second, or does it seem like?
Well, you know how it like when you shift to third, it's like it. You know what I mean? But it goes. I mean, I drive this car 30, 40 miles a day going to work.
How many miles is on this thing?
150.
150,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it might be something where when there is an S light like that flashing, it could still very much be a control issue. I've seen that light flash for a bad computer. I've seen that light flash for a bad solenoid.
So my question is, do I have to go to a transmission shop? One guy told me it was a speed sensor.
Uh-huh.
I changed that, and I mean the speed sensor I think would be the speedometer.
Yeah, the speed sensor
that works proper.
Speed sensor is a very common repair on that vintage of car. I mean, for sure. But it doesn't necessarily have a transmission shop is going to feel the most comfortable remembering back to working on a 1990. You can't just plug into them like on the modern car and get good answers.
Yeah, it's not one of the quick plug-ins where the OBD2 style. And that vintage of Honda, that 90s, is in that range where that was one of the years. Honda's had many years with transmission problems, and they extended them back then. I kind of remember doing a lot of those.
1990, though, I think was really pre that. I mean, those transmissions did last, but it's very manual to diagnose that. We use a light bar a lot of times, and we connect little LEDs to each shift solenoid so we can see what's happening when we're driving.
So, Chilo, the answer to your question is yes, you probably need to get to a transmission shop. It's very possible that that's just a sensor or some other kind of control issue. But the problem in letting it go, if the transmission sensors aren't working right, it's not holding the right pressures on solenoids, and it's going to cause wear, premature wear. So
yeah, 150,000 miles. It's probably got some life in it. You want to get it to a transmission shop.
And we're going to stick with Hondas. We're going to Tim from Phoenix with a 2000 Honda Odyssey. Tim, what can we do for you?
Okay, guys, maybe you can help me here. I've got a 2000 Odyssey. I bought it in December. I've had the transmission replaced twice. Long story on that. Just had a $600 major tune-up. 3 days ago, I ran out of gas right in front of the driveway. I just added 2 gallons of gas to it, and the car won't start. And I tried jumper cables. I got neighbors involved, and we had a bad set of cables, but we got ones that showed a spark, so we know the cable's good. And I cannot get the car to turn over or start or anything. And it just had all the spark plugs replaced, major maintenance, and it had a brand new transmission in it. Okay. And I know nothing about cars.
Okay, you said a couple things that made me contradict it a little bit. You said you can't get it to crank over, but then you said you had a bad set of jumper cables. So when you start it, does it still, or when you attempt to start it, does it still sound like it's out of gas?
Yes.
Is it so it is cranking then? It cranks and cranks and cranks. Now, what makes you think that you ran out of gas, or did it simply just stall on you?
Well, I know that it was down. I knew that I was almost out of gas because I was pushing it to the limit, and I've run out of gas before on it. But the same thing's happened to me before, and I was driving and it literally just everything went dead on it, and then it just we had to push it into the driveway.
And then did you say
there was no gas in it?
Okay, did you say it has spark? Were you able to confirm that there is spark?
Yes, there is.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a fuel delivery issue. Maybe when we've talked about this a lot, running your tank low is bad for the fuel pump. You don't have enough fuel in there. The excess fuel helps cool the pump. The pump is submerged down in the tank. I'm guilty. I mean, my car's always got the fuel light on. My maintenance required light's been on for 2.5 weeks. I'm 1,000 miles past on my oil change. So
I went 2 weeks with a tire light on. I finally did something about it Friday.
So what I would suggest to you, it sounds like you have a fuel delivery issue. I would put a couple more gallons of fuel in the tank and shake the van. Stand next to the side of it and just shake it like you're trying to tip the darn thing over. And you get that fuel sloshing around in there. That pump may have just died or landed on a dead spot on the coils or something. Just shake it, smack the fuel tank.
See if it fires
See if that happens. Now, if it does, don't go to the bank with that one and say, I fixed my car by shaking it. You didn't. You got lucky. Go get a fuel pump.
Yeah,
if that's what happens.
You're going to be in Blythe because it sounded like you were describing. It was a crank no start.
Yeah.
Like it sounded like it was out of gas.
Cranking and cranking and cranking. Yeah, so make sure your battery connections are good. That's the first and foremost. But fuel. Check that. Get some in the tank and shake it. Let us know how that works out. That's great. And then Carrie in Scottsdale, we're going to go to you with your 2006 Dodge Dakota. What can we do for you, Carrie?
Hey, well, just to comment on Tim's issue just a second ago, I had a Honda Odyssey that I had to replace the transmission twice in about 5 years, and it seems like that's an issue with Honda Odysseys.
Yeah,
but that's not what I'm calling.
Yeah, they put a small transmission in that for a big vehicle the first few years, I think. So.
Yeah, and we finally found out what the fix was for that, so I get more information about that.
Well, Kerry, what can we help you with in your Dodge?
I have this constant seatbelt beeping going on, even though your seatbelt's plugged in.
Okay.
But it keeps beeping no matter what. It tells you your seatbelt's not plugged in, but it's plugged in. I plugged in all 4 of my seatbelts.
No, you've got them all 4 plugged in. And if you're in the car by yourself and you're the only one, only one in the car and your seatbelt's on, it still does it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Chances are that's a pretty simple fix.
It's going to be a bad switch in the buckle.
Yeah, there's a switch in the buckle because the car, the secondary restraint system or the airbag system wants to know whether or not you've got your seatbelt on, because the second generation airbags are going to deploy differently based if some of them won't even deploy at all if there's a passenger seat sensor. If there's nobody in the seat, it's not going to blow the airbag if you have a collision. That's by design, save money. But
this is when I'm in it by myself. I mean, there's no passenger.
Sure.
And I plugged in all the seatbelts just to make sure that it wasn't something else.
Right. I was just explaining a little bit how the system works, but most likely you've got a bad switch on your driver's side seatbelt latch where you plug it into. There's a switch in there that's probably bad. Not real tough to diagnose. If you had a voltmeter and you could get on the 2 wires coming out of it, it's just a switch. You just click the buckle in and out, and if you don't see any changes, well, then you probably got a bad switch. You can pick that up. You're going to only want to get it from the dealer. I wouldn't get a used one. Any independent shop can do it. They just are going to buy the part from the dealer, and then and that should be it. It should be fairly simple. So
our fact or fiction for the day, because there's a little misbelief out there. Manual transmissions are considerably more efficient than the modern automatic transmission. What do you think, Matt? Fact or fiction?
Well, you qualified that because you said modern. So
I did.
It used to be you'd see the CAFE rating to the fuel ratings, and always a manual transmission had got better gas mileage. And I don't know why, if it was because of the weight or the shifting or idling, maybe the extra load on the engine at idle, but. I know the answer. I'm going to say it's I forgot the question, but it's fiction. They are not, because I bought a Nissan Cube with the CVT transmission, constant variable transmission, and that actually got better mileage than the stick.
In some cases, I've seen in some of these Kias and cars like that the automatic is considered the miles per gallon. As a majority, we're splitting hairs, but the manual transmission is about maybe 1% more efficient. In the old days, we had, with the first automatic transmission, we had a hydro coupling. That was the torque converter from back then, and the hydro coupling was super inefficient. Right. And then the torque converter came along, and it was much, much better. But it wasn't really good till the late 80s when they came up with torque converter lockup clutch, and that brought them pretty much on the same page. Manuals over the lifespan are cheaper to maintain, and they're more fun to drive. But other than that, they're pretty much the same deal.
The new automatics with the Tiptronic, the steering wheel paddle shifting and stuff like that. They have 8, 9-speed automatic transmissions now.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. That's for people who don't really know how to drive a stick.
Come on now. Okay, let's get some calls. Scott's been waiting very patiently from Phoenix on his 2006 Toyota Tacoma. Scott, what can we help you with on Bumper to Bumper Radio?
Hi, guys. Hey, I had a question about, I do a lot of stop-and-go driving, and I turn my engine on and off a lot. And when I turn it off, I can hear my radiator fluid going to the overflow. Is that normal? Should that happen every time I turn my engine off?
Well,
I hear a sucking sound going through the engine, and I'm guessing it's my radiator fluid. That's the only thing.
When you hear this noise, are you sitting in the car still, or are you outside?
Yeah, no, I'm sitting. As soon as I turn it off, it takes about maybe a second and a half, and then all of a sudden I'll hear it kind of sucking off.
It just kind of goes.
Do you think it's the Freon equalizing, not the coolant?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's probably not the refrigerant, but we'll address that just in case. Probably what you're hearing is the air conditioning system doing what we call equalizing. Inside the car is the evaporator. That's where you're getting the cold air from. That's where the heat exchange is happening for your air conditioner. On one side of that, as the pressure enters the car, it might be 250 to 275 pounds of pressure, and then that's either going to go through an expansion valve or an orifice tube that's going to drop that down to, let's say, 40 pounds of pressure. And that's only happening while the compressor is running, where those pressures are like that. So you might hear that noise when you shut the engine off, or if you were to turn the AC off, maybe just sitting at a light, try it and see if you hear the same noise. So with the compressor not running, the pressures are going to go through that valve and just equalize. And then you'll end up with, say, 75 or 100 pounds of pressure on the
both
high and the low side, and it's just equalizing. So it's nothing to worry about. It's absolutely normal. Now, if you were to open the hood and you saw the coolant going into the overflow bottle, filling it, maybe the engine is superheating or getting hot afterwards and boiling that coolant. Of course, you always want to wait till it is cooled off and cooled down. In that case, I would probably just go buy a new radiator cap. They're cheap enough, $15. Make sure you have the right pressure cap on there. That Toyota is probably a 16-pound pressure cap on it. So if it's only holding 13, it's allowing the boiling point to drop. It's lowering it. Yeah, so it's going to boil sooner, and then it's going to allow the water to push into the overflow, and it won't allow the water, or may not allow the water to suck back out of the overflow because it's not sealing properly. So
thanks for the call, Scott. That's a great question, and one that everyone's probably wondered. Hey, what the heck is that noise?
Yeah, in some of the new cars now, Volvo, some of the BMWs, we get that air conditioning smell, the mildew smell from the condensation. They're actually using the computer, opening up the vent doors now, and running heat into the air conditioning system with the fan. So you might hear the fan going, you might hear these doors flapping and moving, and they're doing that to try and use heat to kill the mildew and the mold from the evaporator.
I hate that smell.
Hey, good news is we can get rid of it, though.
Yes.
All righty, up next we have got, we're going to go with Dustin in Glendale, 94 S10 Blazer.
Yeah, hi. I got the 94 S10, 4.3 with a CPI in it.
Okay.
And it idles fine when it's cool. When it warms up, it's got a rough idle. And you turn on the air conditioning, and because of increased load, it gets worse. But it has no codes whatsoever.
No codes, no check engine light coming on at all?
No, and I checked with the scanner, and it's got nothing.
Well, you're talking about running better when it's cold and then rougher when it warms up. So instantly, I'm kind of thinking you might have a vacuum leak problem, because when the car's colder, the engine's going to recognize that the temperature sensor is going to show that it's 60 or 70 or now 80 degrees outside. In the morning on your first start, and it's going to deliver more fuel. The engine needs more fuel to run when it's cold. As it warms up, it needs less fuel. So might be that it starts to cut back the fuel, and it was masking a vacuum leak. That's the first thing I'm thinking of looking at. No code diagnosis is a little bit tough sometimes. So again, if you don't have a shop, that's something you're going to need to get in a shop probably. Bumper-to-bumperradio.com if you don't have a relationship with somebody else or another shop that's good for you. But take a look for vacuum leaks. Maybe some carburetor spray around the intake manifold. But be careful. You get an errant spark from a bad distributor cap or something, you got a fire. So be cautious.
If we're quick, we got time for one more.
All right, one more. We're going to take let's stick with another Blazer. Curtis, we're going to take it real quick, and then Mike and Marvin, we will get to you after the show. We answer every single call. Curtis, quickly, what can we help you with?
Oh, yes. On my Trailblazer, I have the front air on the AC unit. The air will blow out of the floor vent and out of the windshield vent, but it won't come out of the middle vent in the dash.
Okay, did that suddenly start happening, or did that coincide with maybe changing a battery or anything like that?
The only thing I changed, I switched out the radio on the Trailblazer, and it happened about a week after that.
Okay, did you have the battery disconnected?
I did.
Okay. You might have made the controllers lose their home. There's electronic motors that move doors to direct the air different places. If you disconnect the battery, sometimes they forget where they are, so they just go to a maximum open or close in one direction.